Hey everyone, today I've got a story that unfolded in less than a minute, yet it was enough to make your pulse double in speed. Our neighborhood HOA Karen stormed into my lakeside cabin carrying an actual firearm, not a prop, not a toy, but the real thing. The irony? She aimed it at the one person capable of triggering a full-scale federal investigation into our HOA within a single day. And less than 60 seconds later, this self-proclaimed power Karen managed to live-stream her own downfall and arrest warrant, broadcast in front of over 3,000 stunned viewers. So, have you ever had to go head-to-head with an HOA like this? Drop a comment below. I'd love to know I'm not the only one out here. I'm Marcus Thorne, and let me take you back to how this Saturday morning derailed faster than a drone caught in a thunderstorm. It started at 7 a.m. at my cabin overlooking the lake in Virginia. Just as I was about to brew my first cup of coffee, the steady growl of a Mercedes engine broke through the quiet mist. Through the kitchen window, I watched a sleek black sedan crunch to a stop in my gravel driveway. Out stepped Vivian Blackwood, our HOA president, flanked by two men in dark suits. One carried a metal case, the other had the unmistakable bulge of a concealed weapon under his jacket. This was no petty neighborhood dispute about lawn height. Thorne, open up. We're authorized to inspect this property immediately. Vivian's voice ripped across the calm lake like a chainsaw tearing through silk. I set my coffee mug down beside a framed photo of my late wife, Sarah, her radiant smile frozen in time, captured by this very lake. Looks like they've finally walked straight into the trap, I murmured to her picture, feeling that same blend of grief and resolve that has followed me since losing her 18 months ago to what most believed was a sudden heart attack. But before I get too far ahead, let me give you the full picture. I'm a 52-year-old former DARPA engineer. For 25 years, I built defense systems for the government before retiring early to honor Sarah's memory. This cabin isn't just a home, it's a functioning research facility where I've been creating civilian drone technology for search and rescue. In the basement are 12 prototypes for Project Lifeguard, a fleet of autonomous drones designed to locate missing people in wilderness disasters. Just last month, 3 hikers stranded in a Colorado snowstorm owed their survival to my beta units. Every morning, I sit in Sarah's favorite corner nook, sipping coffee from her blue ceramic mug, staring out across Clearwater Lake. For me, it's not just a ritual of grief, it's a commitment to purpose. This cabin is the last living connection to the woman who taught me that technology should always serve humanity, never harm it. So when Vivian Blackwood set her sights on driving me out, she wasn't just threatening property, she was violating sacred ground. Now, who exactly is Vivian Blackwood? She's 48, once a real estate attorney, until 3 years ago when she lost her license for forging documents in a land fraud scheme. Since then, she's been living in the shadow of collapse, renting a condo, driving a 12-year-old Honda, and locked in nightly screaming matches with her husband Victor over mounting debts. Becoming president of the Pinecrest Estates HOA was her last desperate grab at power, a chance to feel relevant again while secretly scheming a development deal that could net her family millions. But beneath the bluster is fear. I've seen her hands tremble during HOA meetings, watched her dodge questions about missing funds, and noticed the panic in her eyes whenever finances come up. She's terrified of losing everything a second time, and desperation is far more dangerous than pure malice, because desperate people convince themselves that anything is justified if it means holding their world together. What Vivian didn't realize was that she'd stepped into a game she could never win. 3 months ago, she began her campaign against me, bogus HOA violations, $5,000 fines for grass that measured a fraction of an inch too tall, noise complaints about my drone testing even though the decibel levels were lower than a lawn mower, and threats over my federal research grants. But here's the thing, her harassment triggered monitoring protocols I'd built back in my DARPA days, security systems designed to flag potential threats against federal contractors. 2 weeks ago, I sent a carefully worded message to Lieutenant General David Hawthorne, my former boss and now head of the Defense Innovation Unit. Dave, the HOA situation is escalating beyond a civil matter. Suspect possible foreign influence and local real estate manipulation, might require federal oversight. Can you visit next Saturday for a consultation? His reply was immediate. Marcus, Consider it handled. We've been tracking similar operations. Time to set the trap. So as Vivian and her hired muscle pounded on my door, I pressed a hidden button beneath the kitchen table. Instantly, a silent alarm pinged David's secure phone. Within seconds, I got confirmation back. Situation confirmed. ETA, 3 minutes. Recording everything. ADH. Calmly, I took another sip of coffee and watched via my security feeds as Vivian held up what looked like an official document. I'd bet anything it was as fake as her law license. "Mr. Thorne, we're entering whether you cooperate or not," she shouted, and then came the sound of my front door being forced open. First through the doorway was Tommy Morrison, a washed-up casino security guard drowning in gambling debts, his hand resting on a real firearm. Behind him trailed Derek Palmer, Vivian's 26-year-old son, lugging a laptop bag and looking queasy enough to redecorate my hardwood floors with his breakfast. Well, I said, standing slowly, raising my hands in mock surrender. "To what do I owe this visit, Vivian? And just curious, is your friend back there even licensed to carry a weapon on federal property?" The words hung in the air like smoke after a gunshot. Vivian's face faltered just for a moment. Vivian lets out a sharp laugh at my mention of federal property, but the tremor in her voice betrays her. "This is just a residential neighborhood, Thorne. Don't try to scare us with your military R8 copyright some 8 copyright," she snaps. Then, with a smirk, she whips out her phone, taps the screen, and goes live on Facebook to her 3,200 HOA group followers. "Everyone, I'm here at Marcus Thorne's residence to investigate suspicious and possibly illegal activity. As you can see, he's being uncooperative and throwing around claims about federal jurisdiction. What Vivian doesn't realize is that my cabin was officially classified as a federal research site 6 months ago. I have the paperwork. What she also doesn't realize is that her every word, every move, every twitch of Tommy's trigger hand is being recorded by hidden cameras and streamed directly to federal servers. And most importantly, she has no idea that in less than 2 minutes, someone is going to step through that door who can turn her from self-righteous accuser into a handcuffed defendant before she even finishes her live broadcast. The growl of another engine reaches us through the open doorway. Tires crunch on my gravel drive. I catch the flicker of panic on Tommy Morrison's face, and I can't help but allow myself the faintest smile. "Vivian," I say evenly, "you're about to learn that some neighbors have deeper connections than you could ever imagine." 3 months earlier, it all began with what she called an emergency home meeting at the community center. I remember walking into that airless room filled with 47 homeowners sitting in folding chairs, most of them bewildered about why they'd been summoned on a random Tuesday night. Vivian stood at the front, flashing the predatory grin she wears whenever she thinks she's cornered her prey. "Tonight, we're voting on Resolution 24C, she announced. "This will ban all industrial or commercial activities within our residential community." The measure passed 28-9. Most of the room had no clue. They just handed Vivian the legal crowbar she needed to pry into my life. What none of us knew then was that her husband, Victor, had already cut a preliminary deal with Meridian Development Company. Their plan, a luxury resort on Clearwater Lake, funded by foreign investors eager to buy up all 47 properties at bargain basement prices, less than $200,000 apiece, well under market value. My lakeside cabin, with Sarah's memorial garden, was the jewel they needed to crown their empire of glass towers and tourist playgrounds. The harassment began quietly. First, a landscaping fine, $5,000 because my grass measured 3.2 inches instead of their newly imposed 3-inch maximum. I measured it myself, photographed the evidence, filed an appeal. Vivian tossed it out without explanation. Next came noise complaints about drone testing, even though my equipment clocked in at 55 decibels, quieter than the lawnmowers buzzing every Saturday morning. But the real turning point was when she went after my federal research grants. Somehow, she obtained confidential details about my project lifeguard funding and, in the next home meeting, brandished stolen documents like a trophy. "Marcus Thorne is exploiting his military ties for personal gain," she declared. waving papers that should never have been in her possession. He's funneled millions from classified sources, and we don't know what he's building in the cabin. That's when the sleepless nights began, not for me, but for Vivian. On my late-night walks around the lake, I'd see her kitchen light burning at 3 in the morning. Sometimes I'd catch her silhouette at the window, staring out toward my cabin as though it held the answer to a puzzle she couldn't solve. During home meetings, her hands trembled whenever she opened financial reports. And when longtime residents like Jennifer Walsh or Robert Martinez pressed her with pointed questions about missing HOA funds, she dodged their eyes completely. The truth is, Vivian wasn't born a villain. She was carved out of desperation and bad decisions. Years ago, she had money, prestige, a BMW, a 5-bedroom home in the most sought-after part of town. But 3 years back, her real estate empire imploded when she falsified documents in a land deal that collapsed spectacularly. She lost her law license, her reputation, and most of her wealth in one sweep. Now she's trapped in a condo she can't afford, driving a Honda with 200,000 miles on it, listening to Victor rage about their debts every single night. I can't lose anything else, she once confided to Jennifer Walsh at the mailboxes. I just can't go through that again. I understood her fear, but understanding her motives didn't excuse her methods. The breaking point came when I discovered a USB drive jammed into my garage computer. My security system told the rest of the story. A man in coveralls, claiming to check electrical connections, spent 40 minutes copying my files. The drive contained sophisticated malware built for one purpose: to steal classified data from defense contractors. And that's when I knew this wasn't just HOA harassment anymore. This was espionage. And it was time to build my trap. After discovering that malware-loaded USB drive, I reinforced my defenses. Extra security cameras went up across the property. I planted decoy files on my systems, convincingly stamped with classified tags, designed to lure in anyone foolish enough to steal them. And most importantly, I reached out to Lieutenant General David Hawthorne. In a carefully encrypted email, I wrote, "Dave, this is no longer a matter of neighborhood harassment. I'm seeing a pattern that matches foreign intelligence gathering operations. The pressure seems engineered to push defense contractors off their land. I suspect my property is part of a larger plan to seize territory near military bases. If things escalate, I'll need federal oversight." His reply landed within 6 hours. "Marcus, your timing couldn't be better. We've been tracking similar operations in a dozen states, always near communities with high numbers of retired military or defense contractors. Consider this an act of counterintelligence op. I'll back you up next Saturday. Let's see what they try when they believe you're cornered." Exactly what I needed to hear. What made this morning so perfect was that Vivian thought she was running the show. Her private investigator had fed her information about my weekend routines. She believed she'd discovered that I was expecting a high-level visitor. In her imagination, this was her golden chance to catch me red-handed in some shady weapons deal or clandestine data exchange. She had no clue she was about to broadcast her own federal crimes to thousands of witnesses, while a decorated general documented every detail for evidence. As I sat in my living room waiting for David to arrive, listening to Vivian's voice rising outside, I thought about Sarah. Before she died, she'd been digging into strange real estate irregularities, especially the way military families around Clearwater Lake were being pressured into selling below value. Her last words in the hospital echoed in my mind, "Marcus, a broken bar, something isn't right about these development projects. Promise me you'll dig deeper if anything happens to me." I promised. I never dreamed that keeping that vow would uncover an international conspiracy that began in my own backyard. Now, 15 minutes into this circus, Vivian's livestream had ballooned to over 4,200 viewers. The comment section was chaos. Tommy Morrison stood by the door, palm glued to his gun. Derek Palmer was hunched over my computer, sliding in USB sticks and muttering, "MoMA broken bar, this system's way more advanced than we thought," he whispered, unaware that my hidden microphones were catching his every word. Microphones that also fed straight into the live stream. "It's tied into some kind of government network. This might be bigger than we imagined." I lounged calmly in Sarah's old armchair, counting down in my head. 10 a broken bar, 9 a broken bar, 8 a broken bar. The live stream chat boiled with speculation. Why does this guy look so calm? One viewer wrote, "If I had guns in my face, I'd be losing it." Another typed, "That's military hardware on his desk. Are we sure this is just an HOA dispute?" Then came the sound I'd been waiting for. Heavy boots on the porch. The thud of authority. Tommy's face drained to paper white. The door opened, and in strode Lieutenant General David Hawthorne, his dress uniform polished to perfection, rows of ribbons gleaming in the sunlight. Behind him marched Staff Sergeant Miller, carrying a briefcase that radiated authenticity compared to Vivian's laughable evidence. "What in God's name is going on here?" David's voice filled the cabin, carrying the weight of 3 decades of command. Vivian's livestream exploded. Comments flashed faster than the screen could display them. "Is that a broken bar an actual general? This isn't a drill. Something huge is going down." Her viewer count surged past 6,000 as social media caught fire with news that a real military officer had stepped into a small-town HOA dispute. To her credit, Vivian didn't crumble immediately. She'd spent 3 months preparing for this showdown, rehearsing every word. She wasn't about to let a uniform intimidate her. "General, thank you for coming," she said smoothly, phone still recording every second. "You need to understand Marcus Thorne has been exploiting his military ties for illegal business activities. We have evidence he's running unauthorized weapons development out of this property." She gestured toward Derek, who was sweating bullets, typing frantically on my system as if that would legitimize their story. David's eyes went first to the pistol in Tommy's hand, a broken bar, then to the equipment Derek was tampering with. David's gaze shifts from the gun in Tommy's hand, to the laptop Derek is fumbling with, and finally to me sitting calmly in Sarah's favorite chair. "Mrs. Blackwood," he says evenly, "are you seriously threatening a federal contractor with firearms while live streaming it to the public?" His tone is conversational, almost casual, but the steel underneath it makes the whole room suddenly realize just how deep they've stepped into trouble. "Federal contractor?" Vivian scoffs, though the quiver in her voice betrays her unraveling confidence. "General, this man is a fraud. He throws around government titles to scare honest citizens who are only trying to enforce community standards." She waves her stack of papers like a weapon she's clung to for weeks. "He's pocketed $2.3 million from classified sources. That's corruption, plain and simple." I rise slowly, brushing invisible lint from my sweater. "Vivian, those documents you're holding are public records, National Science Foundation grants, fully audited, all for civilian drone rescue research. Anyone can review them. The real question is, how did you get access to confidential financial details from a federal research site?" I pause, letting the weight of that accusation settle, then glance toward Derek. "And Derek, broken bar, I should probably mention that the system you're hacking right now is under direct Department of Defense cybersecurity oversight. Every keystroke you make is being logged as unauthorized access to classified networks." Derek's fingers freeze mid-typing, as if he's just realized he's been stroking the back of a rattlesnake. His voice cracks. "Moma, broken bar, I think we're in serious trouble. This computer has security protocols I've never even seen before. If this really is a federal system, then a broken bar hacking, it's a felony." The live stream audience hears every word. The chat explodes with warnings, legal advice, and strangers urging Derek to lawyer up before it's too late. David calmly pulls out his radio. "Base command, this is Hawthorne. We have armed civilians trespassing on federal contractor property, requesting legal team on standby for possible Computer Fraud and Abuse Act violations." He pauses, listens, then continues, "Roger that. Also alert FBI Cyber Division. We've got unauthorized access in progress." Silence fills the room, broken only by the ping of notifications from Vivian's phone. Her live stream viewership has rocketed from 6,000 to over 8,000, with Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok amplifying the chaos. Someone has already created a hashtag. Local news outlets are calling her phone, but she ignores them, too obsessed with clawing back control of a plan that's collapsing in front of her. Finally, Tommy Morrison speaks, his voice thin with fear. "Mrs. Blackwood, a broken bar, you told me this was a civil dispute. You didn't say anything about federal crimes, or generals, or the FBI." I signed on to scare a homeowner and not threaten a government contractor. He begins lowering his gun, but Vivian glares daggers at him. Don't move, she snaps, her mask of control cracking. We're not leaving until we get answers about what Thorne's really doing here, general or not. I am the HOA president, and I have rights. But even as she barks the words, I can see doubt creeping into her eyes. This isn't what power feels like. Power doesn't tremble. Power doesn't sweat in front of an audience of thousands. David's radio crackles again, and his reply makes every heart in the room skip. Copy that, base. Understood. The live stream has reached the Congressional Oversight Committee. We're at 50,000 viewers and climbing. He fixes his gaze on Vivian. Ma'am, you might want to consider that your actions are now being reviewed at the highest levels of government. That's when I see a data flicker in her eyes. The exact moment she realizes she isn't the predator here, she's the prey, and she just walked into a trap I've been setting for months. With more than 100,000 people now glued to this debacle in real time, I decide it's time to end the speculation. Vivian, I say, rising and gesturing toward the basement door, since you're so determined to uncover my work, why don't we give your audience a proper tour? Let them see exactly what $2.3 million in legitimate federal funding looks like. The camera follows as we descend into my research facility. The basement unfolds like the set of a science fiction film. 8 sleek drones hang suspended from ceiling mounts, their carbon fiber shells gleaming under crisp LED lights. Along the walls, weather monitoring stations stream live atmospheric data from across 3 states. Racks of communication gear hum softly, each piece custom-built. Multiple screens display flight patterns, GPS rescue grids, and emergency protocols in real time. Welcome, I announce for the live stream, to Project Lifeguard, a autonomous search and rescue drones that, as of today, have already saved 14 lives. The basement hums with quiet precision, every piece of equipment alive with purpose. Vivian's jaw slackens as she takes in the rows of drones and glowing screens, but she's too locked into her narrative to retreat. Her eyes dart across my desk. Then she spots it, a folder labeled Classified, Meridian Analysis. She lunges for it like a drowning woman clutching driftwood. There! She shouts triumphantly, holding it up for the live stream. Proof he's conducting illegal surveillance on local businesses. Vivian rips it open and begins to read aloud, her voice rising with false confidence. What she doesn't realize is that, in front of over 100,000 live viewers, she's just broadcast damning evidence against her own husband's company. The folder doesn't contain my secrets. It documents Meridian Development's shady network, shell corporations, unexplained cash transfers, and a disturbing pattern of targeting military communities. It's 3 months of my investigation, an intelligence dossier that screams foreign influence operation. By reading it on live stream, Vivian has just handed the FBI more evidence in 5 minutes than they could have pulled together in half a year. That's when my phone chimes with a distinct ringtone of family only. I answer on speaker. Dad, Emily's voice echoes clearly through the basement, calm and commanding. I've been watching from my office in D.C. Vivian blinks in shock as my daughter's face appears on screen. Mrs. Blackwood, Emily says evenly, I'm Emily Thorne, attorney with the Department of Justice's Counterintelligence Division. You should know that Meridian Development has been under active federal investigation for the past 4 months. The color drains from Vivian's cheeks. What's particularly interesting, Emily continues, is that you've just read classified portions of that investigation aloud on a public live stream. The folder in your hands contains evidence we've been building against your husband's company, evidence of systematic targeting of defense contractor families across 6 states. The live stream chat detonates, viewers realizing they're witnessing a federal takedown disguised as an HOA dispute. Meanwhile, Derek stumbles back from my workstation, pale and trembling. Moma broken bar, his whisper cuts through the air like a siren. This system isn't just connected to government servers. It's tied into the federal cybersecurity grid. Every keystroke I made has been logged by Homeland Security. They've got my typing patterns, my fingerprints, a broken bar, everything. His hands shake as he holds up a USB drive. The malware we planted last week, it wasn't stealing their data. It's been reporting us, feeding them information about our entire operation. The livestream erupts, comments flying so fast they blur into a scrolling waterfall. Better than Netflix. Karen gets owned live. Greatest HOA takedown in history. Hashtags bloom across platforms. Pinterest gate. Justice for Marcus. Drone hero. But it's the comments from neighbors that strike the hardest. Jennifer Walsh. Vivian forced me to sign blank HOA documents 3 months ago. Robert Martinez. She threatened to foreclose over a $50 late fee and made my mother cry. Patricia Johnson. Where did the $15,000 road repair fund go? Nothing was ever fixed. Tommy Morrison finally cracks. Hands trembling. He lays his gun on my workbench in full view of the cameras. That's it. I'm out. Vivian. You told me this was about shady business practices. You didn't mention the feds or foreign spies. I'm done. He pulls out his phone, recording his own confession. For the record, she paid me 10 grand to intimidate homeowners into selling. I've got texts, bank transfers, everything. Emily's voice cuts through the chaos with prosecutorial precision. Based on what we've witnessed tonight, including intimidation, document fraud, and federal computer crime, arrest warrants are already being prepared. Mrs. Blackwood, my legal advice is simple: remain silent, and request counsel. Vivian's mask of confidence finally shatters. Her gaze flicks from the drones, to the federal insignias, to the torrent of comments exposing her abuses. For the first time, I see it, not bravado, but bone-deep terror. This isn't over, she stammers, her voice cracking. Victor will explain everything. He has connections, political influence. You don't understand the forces you're dealing with. But her eyes betray her. She's already calculating the distance to the basement stairs, desperately wondering if she can still escape before she moves. Headlights sweep across the basement windows. The heavy rumble of multiple vehicles fills the air. David's radio hisses with an update. General Hawthorne, FBI tactical units are on site. We also have breaking intel on Victor Blackwood's current location. The basement door swings open. Special Agent Rebecca Torres strides down the stairs, every motion sharp with authority. 2 agents flank her, weapons holstered but presence unmistakable. The live stream counter explodes past 200,000 as the entire nation tunes in to watch history unfold. Agent Torres raises her badge for the cameras. I'm Special Agent Torres, FBI Counterintelligence Division. We have federal warrants for both you and your husband, Victor Blackwood. Vivian's carefully crafted Section 8 crumbles in an instant. Her hands tremble as she dials Victor on speed dial, her voice shrill and cracking. Victoria broken bar. They found everything. The feds are here. Initiate protocol red. Do it now. The live stream chat detonates, speculation spiraling around those 2 ominous words. Protocol red. Nobody watching yet understands the full weight of what she's just triggered. Emily's voice cuts through the tension from my phone speaker, her tone clipped and precise as she coordinates from Washington. Dad, multiple raids are underway across 6 states. Victor Blackwood's operation is bigger than we ever suspected. This isn't just real estate fraud, this is a coordinated intelligence network targeting military families nationwide. Agent Torres steps forward, dropping a thick stack of case files onto my workbench. Mr. Thorne, what you've uncovered here reaches far beyond HOA corruption. Victor Blackwood was a State Department employee turned 8 years ago by foreign intelligence. Meridian Development has been systematically embedding itself in communities with high concentrations of veterans, contractors, and families tied to sensitive installations. The revelation hits like a body blow. Sarah's late-night research, her gut feeling that these real estate schemes were more than coincidence, it all crashes back into focus. My voice steadies, though my chest feels like it's caving in. My wife, Sarah broken bar. She was investigating these same patterns before she died. She believed foreign actors were manipulating housing near military bases. Are you saying a question mark? Agent Torres meets my eyes with quiet gravity. Mr. Thorne, we need to discuss your wife's death. Victor Blackwood's files include references to and neutralizing threats to operational security. We believe Sarah uncovered something that made her a target. The words hang heavy in the air, as if the whole basement has stopped breathing. My grief twists, hardening into something sharper purpose. Derek Palmer finally cracks under the pressure. He pulls an external hard drive from his bag, sobbing as he thrusts it forward. "Mom, you have to tell them everything." I copied Victor's files. All of them. Payments to operatives in 12 states, surveillance on hundreds of military families, and a broken bar protocol read. It's not just about erasing evidence here, it's about activating sleeper assets. Vivian's mask fractures. For the first time, the HOA tyrant vanishes, leaving only a mother staring in horror at her son. "Derek, a broken bar, what have you done?" she whispers. Victor said those drives were encrypted. He swore no one could access them without his codes. Through his tears, Derek shakes his head. "I've been hacking since I was 12, Mom." Victor's security was pathetic. "I've had access for months." The livestream audience can hardly process what they're seeing, an espionage ring unraveling in real time, complete with confessions, federal agents, and mountains of evidence. Viewers call it everything from the greatest livestream in history to better than any spy thriller ever filmed. Then Emily's voice breaks through again, this time with urgency that freezes my blood. "Dad, we have a situation." Victor Blackwood has barricaded himself inside Meridian's downtown office. He's holding 3 employees hostage and threatening to wipe every server containing evidence of the network. Tactical teams are in place. "Boot to broken bar." She hesitates. "A broken bar? He's demanding to negotiate only with you." I blink, stunned. "Me? Why would he want me?" But even as I ask, dread curls in my gut. Deep down, I already suspect the answer. I already know the truth before the words leave my mouth. This was never just about HOA disputes or shady property deals. This entire showdown has always been about Sarah, what she uncovered, and the fact that I've unknowingly been walking the same path she started 18 months ago. Agent Torres pauses as a new message crackles over her secure radio. She turns back to us, her expression grim. Victor Blackwood has activated what he calls dead men switch protocols at a dozen locations across the country. If he's captured or cut off from his network, classified data about U.S. military families will be uploaded to hostile servers. We could be staring at one of the largest national security breaches in decades. And suddenly, I understand why he demanded to speak to me. "Agent Torres, this isn't just about Victor trying to run. He knows about my cyber defense work. He wants my technology to either exploit it for his escape or prove he can break it." I take my place at the terminal, hands flying across the keyboard. But Victor doesn't know the truth. I've been mapping his network for months. I'm ready for this. The room goes still except for the hum of processors and the faint thrum of helicopters overhead. Hundreds of thousands are watching the stream. But in this moment it feels like there's only me, broken bar, and the man who may have killed Sarah. "Emily," I say into the phone, "tell Victor Blackwood that Marcus Thorne accepts his negotiation request. And make sure he hears Thesa. Sarah's husband has been preparing for this conversation for a year and a half. He won't like how it ends." The negotiation begins in the most surreal way imaginable. My basement laboratory linked by secure video feed to Meridian's downtown office tower. Victor Blackwood's face fills my main monitor. This isn't the desperate developer Vivian painted him. His eyes are sharp, cold, entirely focused. "Marcus Thorne," he says, his voice carrying a faint accent I can't place. "You've caused me considerable trouble. Your wife should have been the end of it, but you a broken bar. You're far more persistent than we expected." The words strike like a blade, but I've carried this grief too long to flinch now. "So you did kill Sarah," I answer, my voice steady even as fury burns inside me. "She got too close." She started asking the right questions. Why military families were being forced to sell, why the same pattern kept repeating. The live audience erupts in outrage, thousands witnessing a confession to murder in real time. Victor only smiles, professional and cold. "Sarah Thorne was collateral damage. Our operation is far larger than one community. We've been mapping the lives, finances, and security clearances of more than 2,000 military families across 12 states. Your little HOA fight was nothing but cover for the last phase of data collection here." Off-screen, I know his servers are humming with stolen intelligentsia names, numbers, entire lives of my neighbors and their loved ones. But this is the moment I've been waiting for. "Victor," I say, leaning forward, "there's something you should know about the technology you've been trying so hard to steal. Remember that USB Derek planted in my garage? The malware you thought was pulling my classified files? I type in a command, and my basement walls light up with streaming data and cascading network maps. It wasn't stealing from me, it was feeding me you. That was a honeypot. Every server, every device, every contact you've touched has already been traced. Emily's voice cuts through, crisp and electric. We're getting confirmation. Your tracker had identified 17 more sites tied to Victor's network. Teams are moving in. This may be the single biggest foreign intelligence takedown on U.S. soil in over 10 years. The live stream explodes with disbelief as federal teams strike simultaneously from coast to coast. On my screen, Victor's mask cracks. His confidence falters as he hammers at his keyboard. Impossible. Our systems are military grade. You couldn't have breached them without tripping a dozen alarms. But I'm already pushing deeper, activating layers of electronic warfare code I built years ago at DARPA. Here's the thing about military grade security, Victor, I say as my hands blur across the keys. It's only as strong as the people maintaining it. And your people made one fatal mistake, a broken bar. Their mistake was simply they thought I was nothing more than a retired engineer tinkering with drones. On the screen, I project a live map tracing every endpoint in Victor's network, from the servers in his office to the laptops used by his agents scattered across the country. What they never imagined was that I'd been building countermeasures specifically for an operation like his. Outside, the thumping of helicopter rotors grows louder as news crews descend, eager to capture what's already being called the most watched livestream in internet history. Comments scroll so fast they blur into a torrent of voices of shock, rage, praise, and demands for justice. Someone has already created a Sarah Thorne Memorial Scholarship, and hashtags like #Justice for Sarah, #DroneJustice, and #LivestreamHero dominate global trends. Then comes the turning point at the moment predator becomes prey. My swarm of electronic warfare drones, originally designed for rescue missions, shifts formation and generates a signal-blocking bubble around the Meridian Tower. The effect is immediate. Victor's lifeline to his network goes dark. Victor, I say evenly, watching his face tighten as realization sets in. You came to me because you thought I held the solution you needed. But the only thing you need right now, a broken bar, is the one thing you'll never get from me. Mercy. Agent Torres relays confirmation through her comms. All 17 identified sites are locked down. More than 40 suspects arrested. Terabytes of stolen intelligence recovered. She turns to Victor on the feed. Your entire operation is finished. The hostages you're clinging to are your last bargaining chip, and even that's slipping away. Outside the tower, tactical teams sweep in with precision, neutralizing Victor's men using non-lethal tactics while securing the safety of the 3 office workers trapped inside. Within minutes, Victor is cornered, isolated, cut off, and surrounded. And then, the silence breaks. Vivian Blackwood, who has sat frozen in disbelief for nearly half an hour, finally speaks. Her voice trembles with equal parts fury and heartbreak. Victoria, broken bar, you destroyed everything. Our family, our community. You killed innocent people. I thought I was fighting to hold on to us, but all along you were just using me, the same way you used everyone else. Tears streak down her face as she lays bare the 3 years of manipulation, threats against her and Derek, and the slow realization that the man she once loved was nothing more than a predator cloaked in desperation. To the millions watching, the woman once cast as the villain is revealed instead as another victim ensnared by Victor's lies. When it's over, Victor Blackwood has no cards left to play. He surrenders to federal agents, hands raised, his empire of espionage collapsing in a single day. The hostages are freed unharmed, servers loaded with stolen data are secured, and more than 500,000 live stream viewers witness justice unfold before their eyes. As Vivian is led away in handcuffs, Agent Torres steady at her side, I can't help but think of Sarah. She always believed technology should be used to shield people, not exploit them, and today, her vision proved truer than either of us could have dreamed. Facing the camera, I offer the closing words as the FBI secures the scene around me. So that's how you turn a neighborhood power trip into a national security victory. Sometimes the only way to fight local tyranny, a broken bar, is to make sure the world is watching. I leave the audience with one final thought. What role should live streaming play in holding people accountable when institutions fail? Share your thoughts below and stay with us for the conclusion. A month later, I find myself back on the dock where Sarah and I once watched the sun fade across the lake. The place once known as Pinehurst Estates now carries a new name, a Liberty Lake community. Today, families, neighbors, and local leaders gather to celebrate the very first Lake Freedom Day, a symbol of how a neighborhood clawed its way out of fear and into something brighter, democracy born from unity. The justice system moved with unprecedented speed, probably because 500,000 people had watched federal crimes unfold live on screen. Vivian Blackwood was sentenced to 18 years in federal prison for racketeering, money laundering, and conspiracy. Her cooperation in exposing the full scope of Victor's empire earned her a modest reduction, but every asset she owned was seized. Meridian Development was liquidated, its profits redirected to compensate the families her schemes had harmed. Victor Blackwood received 25 years in maximum security for espionage, conspiracy, and murder, the largest foreign intelligence operation ever uncovered on American soil brought to its knees. He's talking now, feeding investigators intelligence about similar networks overseas. But from what I've seen, his cooperation stems less from patriotism and more from raw fear. Derek Palmer, once painted as a villain, was revealed as another pawn. He was given probation, community service, and a chance at redemption. These days, he teaches cybersecurity at local schools and studies computer science at the community college, determined to repair the damage his coerced choices caused. Even Tommy Morrison, the armed guard who lit the spark, found a new path. After probation, he reinvented himself as a security consultant, helping communities identify and prevent HOA abuse. Sometimes justice doesn't just punish, it redirects. But the greatest revelation came 3 weeks ago, when Admiral Richardson contacted me with the truth I had been waiting to hear for nearly 2 years. "Marcus," he told me in a secure call, "we found evidence in Victor's files. Your wife's death wasn't natural. Sarah was murdered. A toxina designed to mimic cardiac arrest had been used to silence her after she uncovered the foreign money trail behind development projects near military installations. She had planned to deliver her findings to federal investigators. Victor had her eliminated before she could." Standing at the lakeshore where Sarah once found peace in the early mornings, I finally felt the weight lift. 18 months of guilt and doubt dissolved, replaced by the knowledge that her killers were caged, and her investigation had safeguarded hundreds of military families. "Sarah," I whispered to the rippling water, "you started this fight. Together, we finished it." From her sacrifice, our community was reborn. The $1.8 million recovered from Vivian's accounts was divided equally among the 47 families, about $38,000 each. But the true victory wasn't financial. We built a governance model grounded in transparency, rights, and democracy. What journalists now call the Liberty Lake Standards are being studied nationwide as the future of HOA reform. Project Lifeguard, my drone initiative, has grown beyond my imagination. Federal funding secured, teams deployed, and in its first month alone, 127 lives saved. My basement lab became a research center staffed with 6 engineers, all veterans, helping shape the next generation of civilian rescue tech. The irony is poetic. Victor's attempt to weaponize my work made sure the world adopted it for humanitarian good. The media frenzy has been overwhelming but transformative. Netflix purchased my story for a limited series titled The HOA Wars. My book, Livestream Justice: How Technology Defeated Neighborhood Tyranny, debuted at #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. I've spoken in more than 30 states, guiding communities to reform, while nations like the UK, Canada, and Australia adopt new oversight laws inspired by Liberty Lake. Even NATO has folded my detection protocols into their counterintelligence frameworks. But tonight isn't about geopolitics or federal security. It's about home, about the 47 families who stayed, who rebuilt instead of scattering. Children laugh on the playground where Victor's office once stood. Elderly couples fish off the pier, no longer fearing petty violations. Families grill in their yards with flags flying proudly above their porches. Jennifer Walsh approaches me, her face lit by a genuine smile I've never seen before. "Marcus, I never properly thanked you, she says. You gave us our community back, her husband, Robert, adds with a chuckle, and now my wife can finally paint our front door bright blue without anyone threatening us with fines. As the sun sinks over Liberty Lake, painting the sky in Sarah's favorite colors of orange and pink, I set up my laptop for one final live stream. Over 1.5 million viewers joined from around the globe to witness the anniversary celebration. 1 year ago, I tell the camera, a desperate HOA president pointed a gun at me in my own home, thinking intimidation could erase the truth. Today, 47 families stand free because we proved that ordinary citizens can defeat corruption when we stand together, when we shine light on darkness, when we make sure the whole world is watching. The feed widens, capturing children on swings, teens fishing, parents sharing food at picnic tables. An American flag ripples in the evening breeze. Above, one of my drones performs a light show for the kids, its LEDs sketching bright arcs across the twilight sky. When the stream ends, I remain by the water, the wind soft against my face. Sarah's presence is here in the laughter, in the resilience, in the quiet victory of a community reborn. Liberty Lake is her legacy. Proof that technology, wielded with conscience, can defend the innocent and bring tyrants to justice. We turned one HOA president's power trip into a triumph for democracy itself, and that's a legacy worth celebrating. So if you've ever felt powerless in your own neighborhood, bullied by authority, or silenced by those who think they can't be touched, remember this: the truth always finds its way to the light, especially when the whole world is watching.